Good afternoon, dear beloved KAUST community. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all to the new academic year. Sustainability Seminars here is brought to you by Students for Sustainability, a student-led organization aspiring to drive change towards sustainable development with positive impact. Your host is Iman Al-Haji, a PhD student in Material Science and Engineering, and the President of Students for Sustainability. If you'd like to know more about us, we will post the links in the chat. So now, ladies and gentlemen, it's my distinct honor to introduce our featured speaker this evening. Although he needs no introduction, President Tony Chan assumed his role as the third president of KAUST in September 2018. After nearly a decade as a president of Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, he led a strategic planning process to lead KAUST into its second decade, including growing faculty and students by up to 50%. He has expanded KAUST research emphasis from energy, water, food, and environment to include digital and health, launching new initiatives in artificial intelligence, smart health, cybersecurity, circular carbon. His increasing investment in capacity and innovation, entrepreneurship, and knowledge transfer. By positioning the university to leverage Saudi Arabia's ambitious Vision 2030, he is strengthening its engagement with the nation. Finally, he's leading efforts to enhance global and national visibility of KAUST. This is an intimate and open discussion. Please feel free to ask your questions by raising your hand or writing them in the Q&A section below at the end of the presentation. Now the stage is yours, President Tony.
Thank you very much, Emma. Thank you for the kind introduction. Welcome to everybody, especially to the Student for Sustainability group at KAUST. First of all, I apologize for the difficulty in setting the date for this seminar, but things are changing very rapidly in my schedule, but also the topic of sustainability is also a very dynamical one. But anyway, I'm glad we are all here. I look forward to the discussion after my formal presentation. Let me go to the next slide, please. I want to acknowledge people helping me to develop this talk, but also the strategy. One is June Abriano, who's my chief of staff, and the other one is Anna Costa, who's in my office and the main sustainability officer, so to speak. Okay, so I think they are both online. So here's a brief outline of my talk. So I will give some brief introduction. And I want to talk first about the global context of sustainability. Sustainability, as you well know, is not just a KAUST issue. In fact, it's a global context. I will mention about two very important reports. One is the Brundtland report. It's really about the overall framework for sustainability, historical, it's several decades old. And then the second one is the IPCC on climate change, the International Panel on Climate Change. And then the main theme in the global context is these two things are converging. So I'll try to articulate that view. Then after that, I will talk a little bit about what's happening in the kingdom and also in the region. And then finally arrive at what we are doing at KAUST, in particular, how we develop the plan. And next step, so the next step is where we can make use of your input. Next slide, please. So you may ask, why are we talking about sustainability? Why do we need a strategy? Well, we're doing it for many, many reasons. But the fundamental reason is that we need to do this as part of humanity for the betterment of the greater world and for ourselves, but also for the next generation. So this is the right thing to do, especially for a research university like KAUST. I will have much more to say about that later. Now, I am not presenting a finalized strategy for KAUST. We are still in the middle of developing it. I'm talking about the development of the strategy, as it shows in the title. And you are very much part of that process. Now, why is it important to talk about the development, the process? Well, because I think the process, the journey, is as important as the end result. That's number one, okay? And second, how the community participate in that process is a very good predictor for whether the success, whether the strategy will be successful or not, because this is something that cannot be top down. It has to have the buy-in and understanding and the internalization from every member of the community. So that's a very, very important. The last bullet I want to highlight, as I mentioned earlier on, there is this two trends that I mentioned before. You can describe that as a perfect storm. And these two, so I would start out with expanding on that theme a little bit later on. The unsustainable economic system and also the changing climate. The next slide, please. So first, this is the global context. It applies to all of humanity, everybody living on this planet. Next, please. So the word sustainability, of course, is a common English word, but in this context of sustainable development was first used. People credited to this report. It's called the Brundtland Report. It's chartered by the UN. Brundtland, she's a female, if I understand. She was a 3-time Prime Minister of Norway. So Norway is very much involved in this, even currently. I think it was 3 decades ago that the UN chartered this committee, chaired by Brundtland, is to map out, as the first bullet says, the unsustainability of our economic system. What does that mean? That means the resource consumption is unsustainable. The world will run out of resources, as we know, fossil fuels and others, okay, fresh water and so on. And the other one is the development has led to social inequity, okay? The rich gets richer, the poor gets richer. So these are two converging trends, okay? And so the idea is, how do we ensure that our future generation, okay, will have a world that's fit for them, okay? And they are not around now to articulate what their needs are. So it's up to us, the current generation, to do things that are right for them. But these are our offsprings and so on. So, and the second realization is that humanity can do this. Humanity can make changes now if we don't miss this window of opportunity. So sustainable development outcome from this Brundtland report is a concept, it's a framework. Okay, it gives us a new way of thinking about these concepts. Okay, for everybody. So that was very instrumental. And the second one that we want to say is also a platform for formulating policy. Okay, because it's organized by the UN. But this second part has proven to be much more complicated than anybody had expected. So we'll expand on that. You look at the little chart down on the bottom right, the sustainability sort of involved at least these two factors: economical, as I mentioned, environmental, obviously, but also social, because it involves human beings and their behavior. The next, please. So an outcome from the Brundtland report, almost 3 decades ago, is that in 2015, the UN issued another sort of report. It's called the 2030 Agenda. And you might have heard about the Sustainable Development Goals. There's 17 of them. They're outlined there. By the way, you can see I have one of those pins. Can you see? I mean, I'm not seeing myself. So it was adopted by the UN in 2015. So almost 30 some years, actually, after the initial Brundtland report. So finally, you have this thing. And we look at the 17 goals: no poverty, and so on and so forth. Everybody should have fresh water, and so on. I think the goals themselves are not controversial or in dispute, okay? It's called the blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all, not just this generation, but for future generations, okay? So remember, it took like 3 decades to go from the original concept to this, okay? There will be more challenges ahead. Next slide, please. Now, the other trend I mentioned before is climate change. And I'm sure you heard about this IPCC International Panel on Climate Change. For one thing, it won the Nobel Prize, this group of scientists. But this one, another UN thing, It started, I think, in like 1988, if I remember, June, remind me. It was a group of international scientists who's experts on climate change, and it sort of issue a report based on science, based on data, okay, based on scientific reason. They issue a warning to the world that says, this trend, where human beings are responsible for a big change in the climate, and it's not sustainable. And if you look at the chart down below, okay, I hope you can see it. Basically, there are two charts. There's one chart that is horizontal, okay, and the legend says simulated natural factors only. So in other words, the vertical axis is the temperature, the degrees, okay. Zero is the current state, basically, if I understand, okay. So if it's left to nature, it will remain pretty stable and flat. But it's not everything left to nature. So the observed thing, which is the curve that is going up, the purple curve, is the simulated human and natural factors together. So you see it's going up. The increase in temperature is not huge. It sounds like it's under 2 degrees. It's between 1 and 2 degrees. But that will have huge impact. The glacier in Greenland might melt to a great degree just by this, and it will affect everybody. And the latest, the box down in the bottom left is the latest IPCC report. It was issued a few months ago, maybe even a few weeks ago. And you see in quote, it is unequivocal that human influence has warmed the atmosphere, ocean, and land. If it says basically the window is closing, it really has to act now. I think the report comes out once every few years. So this is the latest one. All right, so this is another thing. Next slide, please. So an outcome, just like the 17 SDGs came out of the Brundtland report, out from the IPCC report from also like 3 decades ago, is the Paris Climate Agreement. There's something called the COPs meetings. Now we are at, I don't know what number we are at now. Okay. We are 26 probably. Am I right, June?
Yes.
Yeah, we are 26. Yeah. Is it annual? Is once every year?
I believe so.
I think so.
Right,
I think if I look up, COPs means Committee of the Partners or something. So in other words, it's the people, the country that have signed up, the state that have signed up to this. Okay, so there are 196 of them, right? That's most of the countries around the world. So I think the Paris Agreement is a governmental, legally binding treaty, unlike the IPCC, which is a scientific report. Okay, so the goal is the political will of the parties to try to keep the global warming to be well below 2 degrees centigrade. Okay, if you look at the chart on the bottom right, you see the white chart, the white curve is the current path if you don't do anything. By the way, you see a little dip, right, in 2020. That little dip is due to COVID. But you see immediately it has gone back up again. So the next curve down is if we keep it at 2 degrees, it will go down. And the next curve is if you keep it at 1.5 degrees, it will go down further. So the ideal case is we should try to do 1.5. But if we can do a 2, at least you see it going down. Okay. The way I see it, by the way, the fact that during COVID, the curve came down, you see the slope is more like the 1.5 degree. Okay. So it shows that it's doable. Now, it was a pretty drastic treatment, if you will, for the world because the economy came to a grinding halt. Obviously, we don't want to do that repeatedly. The idea is that if somehow the emission of carbon due to this drastic shutdown can be mitigated by some other means, there are many, like capturing the carbon and so on and so forth, that is possible for human being given this limited window to do something. That's the idea. Okay. So the next one is in Glasgow, if I understand, right? Coming up later this year, in a couple of months in Glasgow. All right, so next slide, please. So you see these 2 trends, right? Sustainability, SDGs, and the climate change. They started from high-level framework, okay? UN, scientists, and has led to sort of, political system buying into them. Okay, and they're converging. And the best example of this convergence is actually last year in Saudi Arabia, because as you know, Saudi Arabia hosted the G20. Okay, and so here's 3 bullets that capture some of the outcome from the G20. By the way, I also mentioned S20. S20 stands for Science 20. That one is led by KAUST. KAUST is the leading organization. So this is the national academies of the G20 country get together, and as sort of, it's not official government because they're not government, but it's sort of in conjunction with G20. So look at the first bullet, right? All the environmental ministers from the G20. So for Saudi Arabia is MIWA, Ministry of Environment, Water and Agriculture. So obviously they are involved in this. They all collectively commit to continue and increase our effort to address the interconnected challenges of climate change. So they're interconnected. Climate change is one of them. Biodiversity, loss, pollution, habitat, so environmental changes, okay? In the biosphere, in the sea, in the ocean, fresh water availability, and other natural resources. So this took a while for, I'm sure, politically speaking, for the minister to get together and agree. They issue a statement, okay? The second is also from G20, the time is running out. Okay, we still, the window is there, but it's closing. Okay, so so there's a encouragement that we should really collectively implement the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. We should take the Paris Agreement and COP meetings as a platform to discuss and take action. I think that's what it comes out. But this is consensus from G20, which is only 20 countries, but these are collectively, they are leading world economies, okay, and a big part of the population. The last one is coming from S20. And you see the S20 has several themes, one of which is circular carbon. So this is very much to do with, the climate change and so on. And so that's one of the outcome coming from there. All right, next slide, please. So what if you don't do anything? Okay, so that's really the key. So here are sort of some snippets of, I think, report coming up from UN. Okay, so for example, on the left, this report is listing the top 10 long-term risks if we don't do anything in terms of the impact. We were trying to figure out whether there's a ranking of these top 10, but never mind, they're all important. So you look at the left-hand side, it's climate change. If you look at the right-hand side, it's infectious disease. We're living through the pandemic and everything in between, okay? And the color code you see down at the bottom. Some of these are technological, some of these are economical, environmental, and so on. I look at this carefully. I think at least 6 of the 10 are related to sustainability, okay? If you look at they're all connected, of course. So these things are hitting us right now, okay? So that's number one. If you look at the chart on the right, it sort of lists the different aspects and where we stand today. So if you take one of the bottom, the 7 o'clock one. Okay, this has to do with the biochemical flows. I think P stands for phosphorus, N stands for nitrogen. This is to do with, right, how healthy the earth is, the soil is. So you look at that, the farther out you go, the more in danger we are, okay? Green is still okay. So if you look at climate, we already passed the green. We're in the yellow light section. Some of these are way out there in the red. So, and I guess the idea is that the more we postpone action, the more this graph will extend to the outer ring. That's sort of the idea. So you see the bottom left, without major intervention, the risk will exceed our ability to manage. So that's the idea. Next slide, please. So this is very recent news. This is from New York City. I actually was watching this, okay? I was in New York City just before this, by the way, probably like 1 or 2 weeks before. I was in transit. You know, I watched this video in the New York City. You know, the subway were like torrents coming through the subway, you know, flooding the subways. And it's, people I know living there, it's like, somehow it's like buckets of water pouring down. It's not rain, it's just, you know, inundated. People die, and, you know, huge economic impact. So that's happening as we speak. Next slide, please. And it's not just the US. So here's some slides I understand. China, of only a few months ago, the place is called Jingzhou. It's a pretty big city, but it's not the one that you might have heard of. Huge, also flash floods. You look at the cost, the one on the top right, people die. And you probably also heard only a few months ago, Europe was also inundated. Germany, very advanced country, cannot handle with this flood. All of Europe, actually, many people die. So this is happening as we speak. So this is not just words, actually happen. You and I must act decisively, okay, and today. Next slide, please. So let me come to the national context. What's happening in Saudi Arabia and in the region, okay? Next slide. So I mentioned about the Saudi-led G20. So outcome from the G20 are two initiatives that are related to sustainability, and for which KAUST is very much involved. So the one on the left is actually about coral reef preservation and restoration. So this is obviously of utmost importance to the kingdom. Right? The Red Sea is some of the best preserved corals. Now, increasingly, is very important to the economic development of the kingdom. Many NEOM, Red Sea project, Amala, and so on are developing there. So G20 agree that they want to set up an R&D platform. And the headquarter of that platform will be situated at KAUST. There will be funding. I think the funding is $30 million per year, okay, in cash and in kind. So there will be a funding program. Headquarters is here. Our office is being set up in the Seymour building. It's being renovated for that. The one on the right is a circular carbon economy, and I mentioned that one of the outcomes. We already at KAUST have a lot of activities in this area. We have many very strong leaders, faculty members, research scientists in this area. So in response to that, KAUST has started a circular carbon initiative, okay? And we are very much part of the national program on circular carbon economy, which is led by the Ministry of Energy in the kingdom. So these are just two of the outcomes, and KAUST has been involved with it from the beginning and now also ongoing after G20. So that's what KAUST is in a good position to not only contribute, but also take the lead. Next, please. Another interesting development, very recent, is so-called the Saudi Green Initiative. This is led by the Crown Prince. If you look at the chart on the right-hand side, so these are some of the targets under this initiative. The energy mix, okay, in the kingdom, 50% renewable. This is, you know, Saudi Arabia is known for, you know, fossil fuel, which is a pillar of the economy. So Saudi Arabia will be 50% renewable. If you pay attention to what's happening like at NEOM, NEOM will be completely renewable. Okay, so that's a big development. Reduce carbon emission, circular carbon is one of them. By the way, circular carbon, there are 4 R's involved in it. One of the R's is reduce. Okay, the other one is to reuse, okay, and so on and so forth. The third one is plant 10 million trees in Saudi Arabia. Now, this is 10 billion is a big number. It's a huge number. But anyway, that's the ambition, okay? And the fourth one is protect areas, okay, to land use. Okay, so you see this is very, very ambitious, but it's coming from the top of the political leadership. So something will happen here. And KAUST, by the way, we are prepared to contribute to this. We are in a good position to do that. We'll see later on when we come to KAUST. Next. So beyond Saudi Arabia, you know, there's also the region, the Middle East, the Gulf region. And in particular, the Saudi Green Initiative, the Crown Prince has announced that he wants to extend this to, we want participation from the region. So for example, in addition to 10 billion trees in the kingdom, we want to plant 40 billion trees in the Middle East. And there are already many of the countries are signed on. and you see. So the idea is, my interpretation is, in a way, for this region of the world, it's actually not easy. It's the most challenging to do some of this. But so if this region is doing this, and if we are successful, it should really set a very good example for the rest of the world. I think that's really how I see it. Next, please. Now, let me come to KAUST. This is the important part, of course. Next, please. So actually sustainability, maybe not exactly in those words, was in our university charter from day one. So here's actually an exact verbatim extract from our university charter. You won't find the word sustainability in it, but you see the words environmental stewardship at least twice. Okay, it refers to our natural environment, to and so on. And so we have a responsibility to preserve, okay, to conserve the natural resources around here, the corals outside, the mangroves around here, and so on. And so in a way, as a university, as a community, let me put it that way, we have to preserve and conserve what we have. I think that was the idea. But in a way, our vision now is actually a little beyond that. I will talk a little bit more about that, okay? Of course, we have to do this, but it is in our charter. So in a way, it's not new that we want to do something. Next, please. But in terms of a university-wide strategy, I have to admit, we're a little bit late. Many organizations or universities already have this built in as part of their strategy, okay? So in a way, it was in our charter. In a way, we are late in coming together, okay? So why now? Why do it? Well, here's some reason, okay? We want to lead. It is very much tied to our mission. If you look at our 4 areas, original areas of research themes, energy, environment, water, and food, they are all related to sustainability, okay? So it's natural for us to do it, okay? It's just we have to do it in a coordinated way. We have been doing a lot of things already, okay? And as a research university in the kingdom, we have a responsibility to do it. So if you look at the 4 circles down below, there are many reasons why we want to do it. We hope that it will help us to attract talent and retain talent. There are many people who want to believe in this. They want to join an organization that also will practice and believe in this, okay? We hope it will change our value system in everything we do, okay? It will make our organization more efficient, okay? So hopefully, doing things in a sustainable way, not only will we do all the goods, but also we make us more efficient and save resources. And finally, we want to change our behavior, okay? Facilitate new partnerships and a new sense of purpose. So those are the reasons we want to do it. Okay? A little bit altruistic, but a lot of that has to do with actual practical benefits. Next, please. So how do we frame this sustainability vision? First of all, it has to be all hands on deck. It's not just the president saying we have to do it. You have to do it this way. We're talking to the student today. The student have to, first of all, you can contribute, but also you have to practice. You have to practice it. So this is basically everything we do here. If you look at the boxes here, is everything we do: research, education, administrative support, community, and so on and so forth. Right. So we need to do everything here. Okay. So I don't want to go through the details here. Next, please. Now, something we have done already. This is not widely publicized. A few months ago, in March in particular, KAUST was one of 57 universities, actually the president, if I remember, signed a joint statement calling for accelerated action for a more sustainable world, in particular calling for, do this 17 SDGs. And then later on was publicized. I don't know whether we're the only university in the area. I don't remember, but there's only 57 universities from around the global, from US, Europe, China, the Americas, and so on and so forth. So that's something that universities should have a special role and a special responsibility to act. So that's one thing that we have done. Next, please. Second, now this is a complicated slide, but I want you to pay attention to the word in the title: deep tech innovation. So deep tech, I hope you know what I mean, right? This is a lab that we're happening in our labs. Okay, this is not just a high school student writing an app. Okay, this is mostly there's some deep tech. Okay, in whatever way. Innovation. Okay, innovation in this sense could mean general. That means you're doing things in an innovative way, but also means that you do things that can be transferred, okay, to application that can be commercialized. That you can lead to startups. So this sustainability can lead to actually huge opportunities for certainly countries, but for organizations like KAUST. Okay, so students, your research may have something that you can change the world, but also you can form a startup company. In a way, the playing field is more level because in a way it's relatively everybody's on the starting line, so to speak. So now if you look at the lines around the circle in the middle, we're already doing a lot of things. For example, one thing that Iman, you did not mention because the blurb that you read was a little out of date. The latest initiative we started is called the Climate and Livability Emission. This is the most recent one, started maybe two months ago. Okay, so that obviously related to this livability. Okay, that's very important. It has to do with how you design future cities, how do you ensure water and food security, and so on and so forth. We are doing that already. We're doing a lot in climate technology. Circular carbon is one of them. Energy storage, clean combustion, and so on and so forth. And so that's on the bottom left. We have research center in those. There's one on the bottom right. It's new scientific concepts. Blue carbon ecosystem. Blue carbon meaning the ocean. So the ocean can play a big role in capturing carbon, a storage for carbon. Okay, this term was coined by one of our faculty members. Blue carbon now is quite well widely used. Mangroves, we have done right here at KAUST, but mangroves are a huge part of the ecosystem, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, the top right is that we need to build strong partnership, not only with government, but with private sector and global. You see them here. So if you look at the chart in the middle, if I count correctly, there are 10 of the 17 SDGs. I think that we have been contributing that we can contribute. You see them there. Okay. Next, please. So a little bit about the organization. Okay, so June and Anna are very much involved in this. So about half a year ago, I charged a working group, okay, to start to gather information about what we have been doing, okay, in sustainability, but also to get information so that we can outline, work towards a unified vision and action for sustainability. So we got to do take stock of what we are doing and get ideas from the community. So, you know, very much today is to try to get input from the students. I think that's very important. Okay. To the group, I conducted a number of workshops, not just one, if I remember, maybe concurrent. And you see the workshop there, the objectives there, identify synergies. If I remember, it was concurrent. There was some technology that allowed them to find out what's happening in the other workshops. Okay. I think the workshops are organized around, like, one is on research and education, the other one is in, you know, our practice, I mean, business aspects, and so on and so on. Okay, next, please. And so part of the outcome, you know, the information gathered, I want to present three aspects, okay, of this. One is in research and innovation. So here, what you see with the SDG, you know, associated with it, is things we have been doing. Really. So, for example, we have a Center for Desert Agriculture. That obviously is tied to zero hunger. That's one of the, right, especially in the kingdom. We've been doing things under COVID. We've been doing this rapid research response team. By the way, I think tomorrow, I think I will be taking the first local KAUST developed PCR test, okay, in the kingdom. It's Saudis FDA certified and so on. We are about to roll that out at KAUST, and then hopefully later on, much broader. So tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., I'll be taking the first swab. Okay, this is locally developed. And this whole effort started last March. with a call to action. So that's one. So smart health initiative, that's another initiative we started. And so that number 3 is good health and well-being. And and so on and so forth. We are doing things with water. We are about to sign a big water initiative MOU with MIWA and other stakeholders in water. There's SWIC, SWCC, one of them, and there are actually several. National Water Company, Aqua Power, and so on and so forth. In terms of innovation, you see there, we run hackathons. We have a KAUST Innovation Fund that would fund startups in these areas. We mentioned the Climate and Livability Initiative and the Circular Carbon Initiative, so climate action, and Coral Reef I mentioned. So if you look at this, we are in the R&D innovation space. We're already doing a lot of stuff. There's a lot more we can do. So we're in a good, we just never put it together in this framework. Next, please. So next one is in our operation. By the way, I always said this, okay, and say it again. We got to practice what we preach, right? As an organization, we got to do what we say we'll do. So in our operation, we do. For example, one thing, our facility management has been pioneering, leading an effort in building a solar farm at KAUST that would generate a significant fraction of our electricity need, for example. So we're quite far along, but it's actually much more difficult than we had expected. There's regulatory framework, there's private sector. So anyway, so we're doing that. We're developing a master plan, and as part of the campus master plan, sustainability consideration would be an integral part of those. In fact, you might not know about, we have FM is building or finishing something called a smart home. So one of the villas on campus is already a smart home in terms of sustainability, solar power, drawing geothermal energy from the ground, with shading in the windows, motion sensitive lighting, and so on and so forth. Hopefully very soon there will be a showcase that you can see. We've started KAUST Smart, you know that. Part of that, you've seen autonomous vehicle running around campus. There's a KAUST Central app, tells you everything. And then you see down below there on the bottom left, many other things. Composting, single-use plastic, and so on and so forth. More will be rolled out. Okay. Okay, so I don't want to go through every aspect of this. So we will practice what we preach, basically. Next, please. And then also community. This has to do with the buy-in, the culture, mindset, and so on. Many of us are living on campus. So here's some of the initiatives, young leaders, learners. Okay, so strategic national and advancement is taking a lead on that. There's a environmental program, plastic project, food waste awareness program, celebration of Earth Day, and so on and so forth. So part of this is pushing this idea even throughout the community, not just the R&D or the university and business part. So those are 3 general areas that we are pushing. Next, please. So this is coming to the summary. So after saying all this, right? So we want to build on the principle and foundation of the university charter in terms of sustainability. You can see that what we're doing now is way beyond just conserving the natural environment of where the KAUST location is, right? We're tying it to everything we do at KAUST. So we need to grasp a vision statement that will capture all of this. So it's a work in progress. You see the 5 bullets there, right? R&D, innovation, our natural environment, operation, and tech transfer, and in our classroom. So next. So the next step, we need to come up with a statement. There will be some process. Your input. You have a chance for input. We need to define goals. Most importantly, we need to define an agenda. So for example, agenda, KPIs. Do we want to have a carbon neutral campus? By what time? Do we want to have a zero waste campus? How? By what time? What kind of investment will we want to do? How do we treat our water? how we use our water, and so on and so forth, right? So we need to get down to that level of details. And then a domain meaning the different expert domains, education, research, facilities, each one of them have their own very much more detailed aspect that they need to understand. With this general vision statement, they can sort of implement their own initiative. And finally, the last one is we need to communicate. We need to remind people. We want to build it as a brand. So websites, communication, and so on. So those are the sort of roughly the 5 steps that we need to do in the future. I think this is the last slide, if I understand. Yes. So let me stop there. I don't know how much time. I have used about 40 minutes, if I understand. So good. So I have 20 minutes left. So back to you, Eman. I don't know who want to do the MC.
Thank you so much for a great talk. I'll love to remind our audience, if they like to ask questions, please raise your hand and I'll allow you to speak directly to our president. I'll start with one question. So once KAUST leadership finalize its sustainability vision on behalf of all of us, we've had a few years to take steps to fulfill this vision. How would the KAUST campus be different from today? And what kind of legacy accomplishments been realized without the sustainability vision, like with and without the vision?
Well, as I mentioned, this is all hands on deck, right? So this is everything. It should permeate everything we do. Some of these are more explicit. Some of these are going on deep down in our labs and how we do things behind the scene. But for example, just in terms of the more explicit ones, right? Hopefully you see that we'll be using much more solar power to generate our electricity, for example. Okay, we may have a meter. We will have a dashboard to show you how far along we'll get. We will have a carbon neutral campus. We'll announce a goal by whatever date, but it has to be realistic. It cannot be, right? Because it might require all of us to participate. It will require investment. So, it's not just saying that we'll do it. I think in terms of, especially the students, in a way, this is for your future, right? You are among the younger part of the community. You'll be living with this future. So you should matter more to you, but you should also be set a good example. For example, zero waste. Okay, so you should practice. It's actually not as easy as just saying that you will do it. Okay, you can give input. You can come up with good examples. Like, hey, we should be doing this. You can also develop system that will make it easy to do. Right? Someone can develop an app to help us do the following, okay? To monitor something, to make it easy to be sustainable, okay? And so on and so forth. So that's how I see, hopefully when you come to, maybe the criteria is, if someone new coming from outside to the campus, okay, after they spend, a couple of hours here, they will say, wow, this is a real, sustainable campus. In many ways they do, okay? They see autonomous vehicle running around, they see recycled bins, they see, things that they just collectively, they will see, okay, this is a very sustainable campus. That's the idea.
Oh, thank you, President Tony.
Now, I don't know how, why don't you take the question? Because I don't know where to see them.
I'll call the people. So Mary, I'll promote you to panel so you can open your mic and also cam if you like. Mary, I think
you are muted, Mary. I can see you, but not hear you.
Hi, it's Mary here.
Mary, you should introduce yourself. What's your role at KAUST?
Hi, sorry, I'm Mary Matheson. I work in procurement.
Okay. You have a question, right?
Actually, I didn't have a question.
Okay, all right.
You raised
your hand.
I thought,
all right.
That was an error. I'm sorry.
It's all right. Let's see, Shahid. You have a question, Shahid?
You're muted too. What is there is Shadi.
Shahidi, okay.
Right.
We cannot hear you, Shaheen.
It's muted.
Okay. Meanwhile, we can take questions in the Q&R.
Yeah, hello.
Go
Okay.
ahead, Shaheen.
Yeah. My name is Shadi Abdullah. I'm an electrical and electronic engineer. Thank you for this opportunity, Mr. President. Thank you, Iman. Just a question about addressing the global warming, because as you know, global warming is impacting human and non-human on planet Earth, and solving this major problem will solve other problems on the way. Now we have two main solutions to address that: either to, as according to scientists, to spray sulfur particles in the stratosphere to prevent the sunlight and heat and cool the earth, or mitigate the greenhouse gas. Now, as you mentioned, Mr. President, the oceans are a big reservoir of CO2. Are we investing enough on oceans, like, for example, upwelling, etc., to do a global air conditioning system and drop the temperature? Are we investing on CCS, carbon capture and storage? We see on Mars, for example, they did a MOXIE system, which is an electrical tree absorbing CO2 and regenerating oxygen gas using electrolysis. So as you mentioned, we need many options, more options, all options, and we need them sooner to address this alarming and warning issue in order for us maybe to meet the Paris climate targets set in Paris. My question, are we really addressing these technologies here and investing and use like KAUST as a model for climate engineering, geoengineering? Thank you.
Let me try to, thank you for raising these two very important issues. The simple answer is yes, but it's qualified because KAUST is a tiny place. This problem is global, right? So we cannot by ourselves, even G20 can only hope to, start this process. But we have some of the world leaders in both of these areas, right? In terms of blue carbon, you mentioned. One of the world leader is Professor Carlos Duarte. In fact, I think this term is coined by him. So he is now, preaching, evangelizing, this concept to around the world to get the whole world community to do it. Even the latest thing I heard about him is last week, he was in Greenland being interviewed by BBC, if I remember, because it was the Greenland glaciers are melting. Okay, so first of all, you have to raise the awareness, but from the scientific community. Okay, so he's really playing that role. And of course, at KAUST, we are also investing in the research in this. So, you need to have the scientific basis before you can do the engineering. Engineering has to be global, G20 countries has to do. Now, circular carbon, I already mentioned, you're right. One thing is you do some artificial shield, but the other one is, as I said, circular carbon. Circular carbon, first of all, in the kingdom has been adopted as sort of the strategy, right? From the Ministry of Energy and so on. Saudi Arabia, as you see, right, in the Saudi Green, Saudi, its own energy mix will be 50% renewable. I mean, that's a huge thing. I don't know how many other countries can say this, especially one where fossil fuel production is so much of its economic pillar, okay? So the other thing is, as I said, we started an initiative called Circular Carbon Initiative. We already have many top scientists in this area. We have, at KAUST, we have a KAUST Catalysis Center. So they are working together with Saudi Aramco and SABIC and so on, for example, to go directly from petroleum to chemicals without burning them and releasing carbon, so for example. Okay, so we're working with industry. The other one is we have people in this, the other center, Advanced Membrane Center, and so they have planned to using this molecular sponge. It's called MOF, okay, MOF, to capture the carbon directly from air. So this is, this is a major thing. So that's another area where we're trying to do. So these things are happening. So at KAUST, Remember, we are a R&D based research university. So our role is not at the industrial or government scale. Right? So we want to lead with the concept, which we have. We want to lead with the fundamental knowledge. We want to raise awareness. And then we want to give advice. And then we want to participate, right? We can do whatever we can to do it. So we want to practice what we preach. We want to preserve the mangroves at KAUST. Okay? We have a rescue research center, so we want to do whatever we can to do it. But that's where we are. We're doing a lot. We're doing actually more than many universities, than most universities around the world, I would say. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Thank you.
I see many questions. Thank you so much, Shadi, for the question. I see many other, so now we're flooded with questions. In the
Maybe you can
chat.
summarize, combine the question,
Yes.
right? Maybe, yeah.
There are a lot of questions about the initiatives you mentioned,
Yes.
KAUST initiatives. How can people get involved and how can they know more about them?
Very good. If you don't know about them, we have failed in our communication. But some of those are very new, okay? So the direct answer is, there have been announcement of those. So you can just ask, say my chief of staff, June, you know, so he can send you those announcements. Each one of those initiatives has a director. So you can send them, they are all first name, dot, last name, right? So for example, the Climate and Livability Initiative is Matt McKay. He's a faculty member, okay? The Circular Carbon Initiative is Jorge Gascon. He's the director of the KAUST Catalysis Center, okay? The G20 Coral Reef Initiative, that's headquartered here. The managing director is Professor Carlos Duarte, that I mentioned before. The Smart Health Initiative is led by Professor Pierre Magistretti, who was our former dean of Ibcc. Okay, so on and so forth. So if you go to them, they are supposed to have a communication plan. Okay, so they should have a website. They should have. If we don't do this well, then we fail. Okay, so you're inside KAUST, so you should know. So.
I guess that's.
By the way, you can participate because many of you are students here, right? So I think you are in mechanical engineering, if I remember. You're in
Material
PhD.
science.
Material science. So there you go. So your research may be directly related to this.
Yeah. Angie wants to ask a question. I would allow her to talk. And Angie now.
Hi, Angie. Yeah, I know Angie.
Hi, Angie.
How are you?
I'm okay. I guess one or many great initiatives that were achieved and completed by KAUST is goal number 5 and sustainable UN SDG with this, which is gender equality and supporting women, and especially women in science and technology. And I guess supporting and endorsing whatever initiatives related to this goal. So this is something really we're proud of, and yes, it's meeting goal number 5, and I hope to see it in your vision and in this sustainability.
Yeah, Angie, I know you are very active in this area. That's how we have interacted. So you know where I stand, right?
Oh yes.
I mean, we need to increase, but we also need to balance. It's a balance, right? Let's say we hire faculty. I don't want to give our deans a quota, you know, is that you say, next year you gotta have this number, but they also have to recruit the right people. So they know. So for example, I have to say, recently, I'm involved in hiring all the faculty, okay? We have actually quite a number of, especially young females, faculty members who have enrolled, including Saudi. You know, recently I know at least one that we recruited from, I forgot, MIT or Harvard, okay? Saudi female faculty, but it's a long journey, you know. It's a long journey, so it's very difficult. I think in student we're doing quite well, right? Yeah. I think we have the latest number I heard. We have 38% of our students are female. For University of Science and Technology, I think we are very, very high. Okay, now it's not just we have to go beyond statistics, right? Because once they are here, we need to engage with them, right? I think that's where, you know, you can help, student group can help, their program where we bring in, activities, speakers, peer groups, all these things. It's not that you're here, so that's it, job done, right? So that's not the idea. So yes, we want to do more.
Thank you.
Thanks. And now we have Ruba. Please feel free to talk. You should be able now to talk.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Hi, Ruba.
Yes.
Yes, so I wanted to ask.
Please introduce yourself quickly.
Oh, sorry. Yes. I'm Rabatunsi. I'm a master's student in the MSc department. Yeah, I wanted to ask the same thing that me and multiple people have written in the group chat, in the chat that is available here,
Yes.
about the concerns for AC operations and how.
Oh, air conditioning.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What about it?
I know that in the dorms we are not allowed to raise the temperature above 26 Celsius, and it has to stay at 26 or below. And when I asked why, they said because of the building's integrity, it can actually it can jeopardize the building's integrity. Yes. So would there be an initiative to make, especially now that KAUST is rebuilding many of the dorms, would there be an initiative to take that into consideration, that AC is not mandatory or required?
Okay, that's a good question. That's a good. Let me try to answer it to the best I can. First of all, I wasn't aware of this. Okay, I don't know whether 26 degrees is comfortable or not, but I think your point is well taken. I think your point is that if you allow it to be raised, the temperature, then you save energy, right? That's the idea. So it's more sustainable. Am I interpreting correctly?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
and it's
okay.
also about how there are a lot of the dorms that are empty. They still have to keep the AC on because,
So I will make sure that, June and Anna will relate this to our facility management, okay? So, because my view is you can be smart about it, right? It's like motion sensitive, lighting. You don't always have to keep it, at that temperature, right? Maybe when people are around, you have a certain temperature. When people are not around, you can raise the temperature. I mentioned about the smart home, right? So smart home is another approach. Even if you keep it at the right temperature, you can derive the energy source, for example, from solar, from geothermal, which, by the way, the smart home has. Literally, they drill holes down into the ground and use the ground temperature to either cool or heat. But I think usually it's cool in this case, to cool the air. Okay, you can shade you can put on special materials, photovoltaic, solar panels on the windows, which are developed by KAUST faculty. Okay, and to first of all screen out the sunlight, but also to generate electricity. This was an invention by KAUST, so you can use that. So even if you keep the temperature at the same level, you can still save. But you're right. I think in a way you can be smart about it. Even if you average at 26 degrees, you can have it higher and lower depending on the time of day, whether people are around. So I will make sure that this is related to facility management. One last thing I want to mention. We are going through what we call rectification of the dormitories. You might have seen, the construction going on. We are more than halfway through, but we're still going on. So maybe this is a good opportunity because we're basically tearing everything up and rebuilding inside. So maybe this is a good chance to put those in. Thank you.
Thanks for answering this question. We have 1 minute left, but we have a lot of questions left. I wonder if you have a couple of minutes more to stay with us.
Yeah, I have a few more minutes, but also those minutes can be sent to us.
Okay.
Maybe send to June and Anna. Send to Anna. Anna, are you okay with that?
Yes, I'm okay.
Yeah. So Anna, your email is anna.costa.
Can you please open your cam and introduce yourself, because I saw that a lot of questions wanted to ask who is behind KAUST sustainability. So The floor is yours, dear Anna.
Thank you. Yes, so I'm Anna Costa. I work with Professor Tony Chan. I'm the Office of the President, Head of Sustainability. We have a sustainability email. I think might be,
okay,
and I will share it in the Q&A, and we can receive these questions. And this will be also part of the interaction to building our future sustainability agenda. So important questions to be raised.
Question and suggestions.
Yes.
You heard the talk, right? You heard the talk, so we are looking for input.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
I will share it now. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. Ricardo has his hands raised. Now you should be able to talk, Ricardo, and ask your question.
Hi, Ricardo.
Good afternoon. My name is Ricardo. I'm a research scientist. I work with Professor Omar Knio. I just want to communicate that we are just finishing a paper where we use an office of KAUST as a case study to optimize the AC operation.
Oh, really? Fantastic.
We are just finishing, and we are going to present this in the Open Week, the Research Open Week on Sustainability, where we minimize the energy consumption subject to the comfort level of people. So
what I suggested, I didn't know that. Okay, good.
Yes. So in fact, it is a multi-objective problem where you want to minimize the two things. You want to minimize the energy consumption, but also you want to minimize the thermal discomfort that people feel. So I think that is a very interesting paper. It takes into consideration the weather around KAUST. And it shows interesting results about what should be the set point and the set point temperature, and how it compares with the recommendation of the Saudi institutions that recommend set points.
So I want to take the opportunity to say, if you're successful, I hope you are, you can see that you can commercialize this.
Right. Yes. But I think
there's a huge number of people who want this.
Yes. But I think that one of the interesting results is the set point of 23. It's not optimal all year around, and we measure what we estimate what is the comfort level, or let's say the discomfort that you can have with the different set points, and it is applied to an office at KAUST. So we will present this hopefully on the Open Week. And
thank you.
That's all. Thank you for.
By the way, this is the Research Open Week, will be in December, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you,
Ricardo.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And one of the frequent questions in the Q&A is the behavioral change of our community.
Yes.
And a lot of people asking that we can do more and we can act more. How can we influence behavioral change in our community?
That's an excellent question. This is the most difficult. I mentioned it when it came to that slide, right? This is the most difficult. I think actually, to be more specific, for the student group, you can be a role model. You can set out some initiative that organized by you guys and publicize it. Say, the students are doing this, so we want to extend it to the whole community. You can think of ways. I don't want to put ideas into your... That's the only way to change culture, is by some small group to say this is the right thing to do. You communicate it, you set a good example and show the results. Then people will be motivated or shamed into doing it. Either way.
Yeah. So what is your view of policy making versus bottom-up changes? Like, when is it the right way to make changes from top down or bottom up?
That's an excellent question. Well, it depends on the system, the ecosystem you are in. Certain organization, you need to have it top down, right? For example, you might need to allocate budget to do certain things. So it cannot be bottom up. Okay. So for example, but in terms of, let's say, to be more specific, at KAUST, right? So we are an organization like any other, okay? But we are a university, so there's a difference there. So the president of a university, in some sense, is similar to the CEO of a big company, but we are not, because students are not our staff. You see what I mean? Faculty are, but only partially. Okay, they are our staff to the extent they, they get a salary from us, but they have their own mind. They do their own research. They are the leaders, right? They are very much of that. So we cannot have everything completely top down in a university. Some part of it has to be. Other part. That's why we're having this forum. Okay, and especially with something that involves cultural change, it has to be embraced by everybody. That's my own personal philosophy. Maybe other president will say, okay, this has to be this way. Okay. So ideally, I want to have top-down initiative that everybody already say, yes, we should have done this even earlier. That would be the ideal thing. But there's a lot of things happening in the background to lead to that. Okay.
That's a very insightful answer. Also people asking specifically about renewable energy. What is the scope to explore options as like solar and power, renewable energy on campus?
Yeah, let me answer that.
Like aim? Yeah.
I already mentioned some of them, right? Solar, obviously, that's something that Saudi Arabia has a lot. Okay, that's one. And photovoltaics are getting very cheap because of some breakthrough, actually. That's a great achievement by science and technology. So that's something that we want to do. It's becoming commercially viable for us to do this. It will actually save us money, okay, if we do that. So that's one. Wind energy is another one. So in fact, the Red Sea, because of the environmental factors, wind and solar actually complement each other well, in the sense that when there's no sun is when the wind becomes strong. I think that's it. Because right now the biggest impediment to solar power is what they call intermittency. It's not always there. So one way is to store the power, but that's not so easy to store the power, right? Because battery technology is the biggest hurdle to all of this stuff. So if you get, for example, at NEO, I know they are looking at actually this complementarity between the wind and solar. Okay, so that's one. The other one is how to transport energy, right? So you can plug it into the grid. That's one. The other one is you can use what they call green energy. Hydrogen. For example, you can use solar and wind to split H2O into hydrogen and oxygen. Then the hydrogen by itself is a source of power, energy. Okay, so then you have to ship the hydrogen around, either in a compressed form or in the form of ammonia. So you can then transport them like you transport oil now. So a lot of these things are happening. One thing I know that we cannot do in Saudi Arabia is hydropower. We don't have that, right? We don't have any fresh water river flowing into the Red Sea. Though we're not Norway or Switzerland. Okay, so we cannot do that. So that's where we are.
There are two questions about KAUST vision, KAUST sustainability vision. The first one is, can people still get involved in the working groups for the sustainability vision?
Good question.
And and what is the timeline? And the other question is, what is KAUST's priorities in moving forward? Sustainable innovation.
I will let June or Anna to answer the first question because they are directly involved with the working group. If I understand, they are student representative on the working group. But yeah. Anna, you want to take that up?
Yes. So that's true that we have already the students representing a very important part of this discussion. We will progress for sure, and we would like to have everyone's input. We will organize stakeholders engagement process. June, do you want to add something on this?
What was the first question, Iman?
What is the timeline of the sustainability working groups, and can our KAUST community get more involved?
Yeah, so the president kind of outlined the process, and the leadership are now discussing possible framing of that vision. As you know, it doesn't stop there. After you have set up a vision, you have to create some tangible goals, and we have to create some real measures I remember the question you asked a little bit earlier. How do we know if we are actually moving in the right direction? So all those processes after the vision has been set, we'll go back to the working group, which I think you represented, the student. We will make sure that there is consultation. As Tony had kind of emphasized, it's very important how we get there, that this vision, this plan actually captures everybody's sentiment, and that we are ready to do our part and kind of get this into action. So the time frame, I would not put a time frame, but unless Tony tells me that it has to happen in December. So, but we will move swiftly, because one of the things that Tony pointed out is there's a lot happening in the kingdom. We want to lead, and we want to assert that leadership. And I think we could not be laggards in this situation. In a sense, we are behind, but in a sense, there's already a lot of sustainability activities that are already taking place. It's a matter of framing. So we will get there, we will catch up. And my assumption is by the next fiscal year, we have something that will reflect the commitment of this institution, the commitment of everyone in this institution, and the leadership role that we would like to take in the kingdom and beyond.
Thank you so much. Thanks for answering this question, John and Hannah. For the second part of the question, what are the priorities of KAUST in moving towards sustainable operations? Or we know that KAUST is well positioned in terms of research. What about operation?
Let me try to take a crack at that. We need to, as I said, all hands on deck. First of all, there's some low-hanging fruit that we can all do. Okay, I don't think we should say we do research first and then we do, our building. I think every one of those domains I mentioned, they will find some low-hanging fruit they can do right away. Some are big long-term strategy, like solar farm. That's a big thing that's coming from our operation. Okay, so the priority is, let's do something now. We don't even have to wait for the vision statement. Okay, we can do certain things now. But we don't want to just only take care of the low-hanging fruit. We need to have some long-term. I already outlined some of the big questions. Are we going to have a carbon neutral campus by what date? But there we need to have a plan. Okay, it's not. We don't want to say by 2030 we will have that. But it has to be based on science, based on facts. So.
Yeah, definitely. We aspire not to just talk the talk, but also walk the walk, right?
Walk the walk, exactly.
Yeah. The last question is about planting trees. There's 10 million trees and 50 million trees in Middle East. A lot of people raise this issue of water. So we are a water scarcity region. How are we going to plant these trees? Do you have any insight or input?
I don't. This is a kingdom-wide initiative. Yeah, you're right. But in a way, you can take that as a challenge, right? So for example, we have research on campus using seawater to grow vegetable. Okay, I just give you an example. I don't mean that you can use seawater to grow palm trees, maybe. Okay, but so this is a challenge. I agree with you. Obviously, what you don't want is to pump water from the aquifers and just irrigate the trees, because then you have more trees, but you run out of fresh water. So that doesn't really solve the problem. I don't have a quick answer to that. Anybody have? June, you have a? Yeah, it's a challenge.
No, the only thing I would add is precisely, as Tony said, this is a challenge. And the role of an institution like KAUST is to offer our guidance. And the point that you're raising is a very important one. And it should be part of the national conversation on how you're going to move forward. The one thing that actually I think was kind of brought up in one of the working groups, the sustainability working groups, is the notion of emphasizing the mangrove stand. That, as you know, is the prominent kind of important vegetation ecosystem here at KAUST. The thing with mangroves is they don't need to be watered, just like the terrestrial trees. So the conversation has really focused on not just kind of enhancing the mangrove stand in the university, but being a champion of enhancing mangrove vegetation all along the coasts of Saudi Arabia and indeed in the region. So this is why KAUST exists, because students like you and researchers here immediately think of the caution once a project has been put forward. And our role is to make that input and make alternate suggestions. And as Tony has indicated, you know, we have the Red Sea farms that are able to produce vegetables on saline water. May that be one pathway of thought in the kinds of vegetation that should be introduced. So our role is precisely to make the kind of input that you are making.
Thank you so much.
One last thought is, you know, for the student, right? If this inspires you, you should try to integrate this into your educational research program, right?
Yes.
Like I forgot Ricardo, right? Ricardo is doing that already.
Yes. We have one last question. Can I?
Oh, okay. I thought that was the
we
last
have
question.
to-
You said, okay,
yeah.
well, this is the last question. Okay.
Yes, last. What is a reasonable timeline for KAUST, you think, to achieve a net zero emissions?
Well, I asked that question myself. We don't know. We don't know. But it's not going to be like in a year or two, for sure. You know, if you look at it, there's some country that have announced those goals. And I hope they have actually studied this and based on facts and analysis and science and policy to go with it. No, so I don't have that answer. And it's not going to be an easy answer. Okay.
Yeah. Lastly, I would love to thank you for coming with us and giving us this precious time. And we would love to give you this memorial gift we designed and implemented by the class workshop here, homemade at KAUST. We hope to deliver it to your office soon.
Well,
thank you
very
so
much
for a wonderful time. Thanks to everyone for joining us, and I hope you have a lovely evening.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.